Well, as we wait for the final votes to be counted, let's find out what's happening on the floor of the National Results Centre here in Tshwane, where Michael Appel is standing by for us. And Michael, most of the big parties having gone home, seeing the last bit of results. Who's still around?
To just over 98% of the votes counted, things are quietening down here. It's a good opportunity to reflect on what exactly this entire exercise is all about. Voting is not only about those who are eligible to vote, who are over 18. Everything that's being done here is, of course, for future generations of South Africans, and who better to get an insight into this entire election process than a young South African. We are deeply honored to be joined by His Royal Highness Ndaloenhle Makanya. Thank you so much for joining us on ENCA. You've had a tour of the results centre. What's your impression? There's numbers, there's names, there's people. It's all confusing. I promise you, confusing to us as well sometimes. What did you make of your tour?
The tour was very interesting. I learned a lot of things today. For instance, when there's a large group in one voting area, how they have to separate them into tiny little groups. So then that's where my father comes in. That's where they would have to talk to him to use his, because that's his land. That's why they have to ask him to use it, because they have to get permission from him. So.
Okay. Tell me about the importance of what's going on here. Why do you think it's important to vote as South Africans, as young South Africans? Why is it important to be interested and to gain a knowledge of what's going on here?
Voting means to have a voice. So you don't complain on the sidelines, you rather complain when you're there. So the people can talk and express how they're feeling to everyone in the voting center. As you can see, there's different voting areas, different people voting around the whole country, Free State, South Africa, everywhere.
So voting gives people a voice. What if people decide not to vote? What do you think about that?
Then we won't get new presidents. We won't be able to get a new, for instance, ruler of the country who is going to fight for different things. For instance, Nelson Mandela fought for freedom, Jacob Zuma, he fought for free education, for etc., etc.
Okay. Tell me about traditional leadership. Of course you would know about that. How does that fit into what is going on here, elections around the country?
It fits in when they have to use our land, and sometimes we would also want to vote. For instance, right, like today, I'm here because they asked my father if I would kindly, if he would kindly arrive here to see the whole experience and to teach me and my brother everything like this. So it was the experience was very nice.
Okay. And political leaders sometimes struggle to connect with young people. 18-year-olds in South Africa, a little bit older than you, many of them decided not to vote. What do you think leaders need to do to address issues, to connect with young people? What are important issues to young people?
Important issues to young people is that we have to teach them more about voting, because they don't really they think it's nothing voting. They don't have a problem with that. They think people vote for fun, but there's actually a meaning to voting. So when people vote, they vote for different reasons. That's what I wanted to say. Different reasons and different things.
No, okay.
So now, what we should do is we should help them and enlighten them to vote, and to see how the feeling is we should help them and give them a tour around how, like I got today. It was very interesting. What happens? They teach them about why, so they know that when they are voting, they don't go there and vote and then vote 2 times or 3 times because it's illegal. That's what they were teaching, basically teaching us today, and teaching a lot of people. A lot of people were angry with this. A lot of people weren't that happy. There were a lot of complaints today.
You hear that, South Africa? It's illegal to vote more than once if you're one person. That's very correct. Lastly, we are still voting on pieces of paper. The youth are way ahead of us when it comes to technology. What do you want to see elections when you're old enough to vote? Do you want to vote on paper? Do you want an electronic system? Should we be voting on phones?
No, we shouldn't be voting on phones. Phones, for instance, are very easy to hack. For instance, my cousin, when he was in school, a bunch of his friends, they had these other old Samsungs that were very easy to hack. They hacked the phones.
Okay.
And they couldn't use them, not at all.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. Your Royal Highness, Makanya, thank you for joining us on ENCA, and I'm glad you had a good time here at the Results Election Centre. We're going to be back in the next 20 minutes or so at about 11:30 just to give a wrap of the day as we're in the final percentages of voting. Over 16.6 million votes counted now, and 98.13% there you see we're almost done for the day. We're expecting the IEC, barring all the legal challenges which they are going to defend in court. We'll see how that process goes, but we should know by tomorrow afternoon to be able to get that final verified voting figure.
Michael, before we let you go, were you at Ndalo's age as well versed in the electoral process and hacking?
I certainly was not as well versed as His Royal Highness in issues like this. No, that blows your mind.
Michael Appel on the floor of the National Results Operating Centre here in Tshwane, in the capital. Ndalo really ready to take over from all of us, Andy.
Well, certainly, Tembakile, when Michael was 12, there wasn't the possibility of hacking because the phone hadn't been invented yet.
Exposing Michael's age, are we?
Yes.